Welcome to the FAFSA Leadership Lounge, where we dive into the policy shaping the work of Florida's school leaders. I'm Michelle White, Executive Director of the Florida Association of School Administrators.
And I'm Jessica Janasiewicz, lobbyist for FAFSA and several school districts across Florida.
So last week, Governor DeSantis signed the newly approved congressional map that was the topic of most of the first special session that we'll see this year. And before the ink could dry, the opponents of the map had filed a lawsuit.
That's right. The lawsuit, which was filed by the Equal Ground Education Fund and a group of 18 Florida voters, asked the courts to strike the map down. They claim that the map violates Florida's Fair Districts Amendment, which was a voter approved part of the state constitution that was voted on and approved in 2010. This amendment prohibits lawmakers from creating a map that favors a certain political party.
So, along with prohibiting partisan gerrymandering, the Fair Districts Amendment prohibits lawmakers from drawing maps that diminish the voting power of minority communities. The governor's office has argued that a recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling means the section of race can't be applied. And the spokesperson from his office said that if, quote, one prong of the amendment is nullified, the other prong banning partisan gerrymandering can't stand either.
This is going to be a very interesting story for a while as that moves through the court system, and we will keep you posted with updates. Also last week, the governor signed Senate Bill 1296 and House Bill 1279 into law. These bills are intended to strengthen transparency and accountability in teachers' unions, support educators, and expand opportunities for students and parents across Florida. Next week, we'll do a deep dive into 1296, which was one of the train bills from this past session.
That's right. And really, the focus of that bill will be to tighten rules on partisan school unions by requiring meaningful voter participation in union certification elections, while increasing penalties for illegal strikes and creating a fast track process to deliver teacher pay raises without delays caused by union actions. This bill could dramatically reshape public employee unions, excluding police and firefighters, but impacting teachers, graduate assistants, and other public workers. Senate Bill 1296 also raises the bar for union certification and recertification by requiring higher participation and membership thresholds. It limits how unions can compensate representatives who engage in political or lobbying activity as well.
That's right. And I misspoke earlier. We're talking about 1296 this week. We'll talk about 1279 next week. But back to 1296 and the union bill. Supporters argue that the changes will improve accountability and ensure unions have true buy-in from the workers. Critics, including union leaders and Democrats, say the law creates unequal treatment between public safety and non-public safety unions, but potentially violating constitutional rights to collective bargaining and free speech. And the basis for that is the fact that the bill does carve out those public safety unions, so police and firefighters, et cetera. The legislation has been sent to Governor Ron DeSantis, and he signed it, and it's expected it will become law on July 1st. I think this is another area where we will probably see some legal challenges moving forward.
Absolutely. So, speaking of unions, a legal fight over how Florida funds education is headed back to familiar ground. This week, the Florida Education Association and 7 parents filed a lawsuit in Leon County arguing that the state's current mix of public schools, charter schools, and private school vouchers does not treat all taxpayer-funded education equally. The lawsuit says Florida's Constitution requires a uniform public school system and claims that standard isn't being met when traditional public schools face far more regulations than charter schools, and private schools receiving these vouchers face even fewer requirements at all.
Supporters of the lawsuit point to about $5 billion a year that's spent on vouchers for more than 500,000 students as public school funding and teacher pay lag behind inflation. State education officials strongly disagree. They call the lawsuit frivolous and saying that Florida remains focused on expanding educational options for families. The case somewhat echoes the 2006 Florida Supreme Court ruling that struck down an earlier voucher program, which is a decision that could potentially shape what happens next with this.
Yeah, and the DOE, of course, has been busy as well. Last week, they announced the release of the framework for the Florida Advanced Courses and Tests, otherwise known as FACT, the U.S. history course in particular, which is a Florida developed alternative to the advanced placement test. So the FACT US History course delivers a rigorous, comprehensive exploration of American history and represents a significant step forward in expanding that high quality acceleration opportunities for Florida students from Florida leadership and educators.
Florida continues to lead the way in expanding access to rigorous, high quality advanced coursework for all students, said the commissioner this week. The fact U.S. history framework underscores our commitment to instruction grounded in the full scope of our nation's history while ensuring materials are free from ideological basis or indoctrination.
The FACT courses were established through House Bill 1537 and signed into law by Governor DeSantis in 2023. And the goal was to create an additional acceleration pathway for students. The framework is for the pilot course, or the framework for the pilot course is available at the website. We'll make sure that that's in the podcast notes so you can take a look at what it really entails. Um, District and charter schools are invited to participate in the pilot program during the upcoming school year, and certainly they can register through an application process to be a part of the pilot. The deadline for that pilot program has been extended until May 18th, so there's still time for schools and districts that want to try it out.
And there's also another interesting story that came out last week. Florida is becoming the first state in the nation to test drone technology as part of school security, with Deltona High School and Volusia County leading a new pilot program. About 40 drones are being deployed on campus to quickly locate potential active shooters within about 15 seconds and use non lethal distractions such as flashing lights and loud sounds while first responders are on the way.
So, this system was developed by Texas based Campus Guardian Angel and is designed to add another layer of protection, not replace existing security like school resource officers or campus guardians. The state is investing over $500,000 to test the drones at 3 Florida schools, with the pilot officially launching on August 1. Reactions from some of our Parkland families are mixed. Some can see the promise, while others are stressing that prevention, not just response, has to remain the top priority.
Lee County Superintendent Dr. Denise Carlin announced that the district has cut or reallocated about $26.5 million at the administrative level to prioritize classroom funding. She started making these cuts when she was elected in 2024, and she has started at the district office, right sizing the headquarters, as she said.
Yeah, so Dr. Carlin has worked in conjunction with um, the interim superintendent in the past to reduce spending, and the number of district directors and executive staff has been reduced from 69 to 50. As of the time of this recording, there's not been an announcement on how many classrooms or how that funding is going to be prioritized, but we know that these are ongoing challenging conversations for pretty much every district across the state this year.
Absolutely. Florida is considering a new rule that could bar students without lawful immigration status from attending any of the state's 28 public community colleges. This is proposed by the Florida Department of Education, and the rule would require that applicants provide proof of U.S. citizenship or legal immigration status before admission, with possible implementation as early as this month.
And to this rule, supporters, including our governor, Ron DeSantis, say that the move aligns with Florida's broader push to limit public resources to citizens and legally present immigrants. Critics are arguing that it would deny education to students who have grown up in Florida schools. It would harm the state's workforce and cost colleges millions in lost revenue. The proposal is under review through the end of this week, and the State Board of Education is expected to discuss it in mid May.
The DOE is going to have a rulemaking workshop on May 20th from 3 to 3:30 to discuss specialization requirements for the resiliency educator endorsement. The purpose of the workshop is to create a certification endorsement for resiliency education.
And the effect of this will be really to establish this resiliency educator endorsement, allowing our teachers and others in our buildings to complete additional training and add the endorsement to their educator certificates. The link to sign up for the workshop, of course, is in the podcast description, but we want to make sure that our leaders know this is something that's accessible for you as an administrator, but also to your team.
Absolutely. Fast testing, of course, has been around for a little while now, but the DOE is creating a new rule to tweak a few things. Let's talk about what this rule really clarifies: scoring, benchmarks, and what actually counts now.
Absolutely. So the big takeaway is that FAST and statewide assessments all report using scale scores tied to achievement levels 1 through 5, with the current cut scores based on the 22-23 baseline for ELA and math. And as always, level 3 remains the proficiency line and that on grade level marker that drives interventions, accountability, and a lot of instructional decision making.
ELA's writing is still the exception. There are no levels there. Instead, each grade has a minimum skill score to be considered on grade level, and those benchmarks will gradually increase through grade 10. Science and of course exams stay at their baselines, which matters when you're comparing trends or explaining results to parents and other stakeholders.
Absolutely. So, one important heads up for our secondary folks in particular is starting with this next school year, 26-27, grade 10 students can only use concordant scores from like the SAT or ACT if they earn them after taking the spring grade 10 ELA PM3. So, if a student takes the SAT, let's say in the fall of their sophomore year, that's not going to count as a concordant score now.
Okay. So overall, this rule doesn't reinvent the fast. It tightens alignment, it reinforces some of those level 3 expectations, and it closes a few loopholes that we've been watching. Once again, stay tuned because we'll keep you updated on this rule's progress.
Absolutely. And a reminder, legislators are returning to Tallahassee next week for special session number 2, or as designated as 2026E, because we had some special sessions last year as well. What they're calling it um, is not as important as what they're working on, the state budget.
Yes, that's right. And this one will probably take a while to finish. The session is scheduled to go from May 12th through the 29th. Um, that's because those two chambers, the House and the Senate, are still a long way from agreeing on the budget. They have been working hard behind the scenes, and we do have our top level allocations now, which is the dollar amount that each silo will get. But of course, there are a lot of details to be worked out within those individual silos about where that funding exactly is directed.
Absolutely. And getting the budget done is important because not only is it constitutionally mandated to have an approved balanced budget before the start of the next fiscal year on July 1, but traditionally education makes up about a third.
Uh
If
huh.
and wow, it is extremely important then this special session we get this rolling because school districts are waiting for all of those allocations to come in and do their district level budgeting. So, of course, we're going to keep everybody updated all along the way.
Absolutely. And as you said, we're cautiously hopeful that they'll wrap things up by the end of this month. That will at least have a little bit longer of a runway until the June 30th end of the fiscal year date. Of course, I know our folks will all remember that last year we didn't get the budget done until like mid-June. So this is a little earlier, which hopefully we'll stay on track with that. Also, there was a cyber attack this past week on Canvas, which is a digital platform used by many schools across the country. And it's prompting some districts in Central Florida to take some precautionary steps. Orange and Brevard County schools both temporarily shut off access to Canvas while officials tried to work to confirm the system's stability. Other districts, including Seminole, Marion, and Osceola counties, said their security teams are actively monitoring and responding to the situation.
Yeah, and so Canvas's parent company confirmed that the breach exposed some student information, including names, email addresses, and student ID numbers. And the company also said that certain private messages on the platform may have been compromised. Officials emphasized that passwords, social security numbers, birth dates, and financial information do not appear to be affected. And of course, our college system is also watching very closely as well.
Sure. The University of Florida has said it's coordinating with law enforcement to assess any impact. While Canvas is back online for most users, some students may still experience access issues as the investigations continue. This is probably not the last time we'll hear about cyber attacks in schools, so it's important to stay safe. Make sure you click on the link in the podcast description for some cybersecurity best practices.
Yeah, so we have a busy week coming up ahead of us. We certainly had a busy week last week. And also this week coming is a state board meeting. So we are going to bring you the latest updates in next week's podcast of all the things that happen there. Of course, there's a number of rules on the agenda for approval. And it's always interesting to hear additional commentary by the state board members and our commissioner and just figure out where they're prioritizing. It is also a time where, when we're recording this, that the DOE is celebrating our finalists for Teacher of the Year. I'm so excited to see who they are. And if your district has one of those Teachers of the Year, I mean, amazing opportunity to celebrate our teachers and the education profession as a whole. So know that we're celebrating. Hopefully you all are too. And I know that that will just continue to add smiles to people's faces as we get close to the end of the year. Also a reminder, Discover 26 is quickly approaching. Only a few weeks left, and now is the time to register. It is going to be an amazing conference, great content, great speakers, and connecting with leaders. You are not in a silo. You get to have support too as a leader. And what a better way to come together with hundreds of school leaders from across the state. So, make sure, click on the podcast description right now, register today, and we just thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lounge podcast presented by the Florida Association of School Administrators. Today's podcast was hosted by Michelle White and Jessica Janasiewicz. The podcast was produced by Jeff Willigan. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. New episodes are released each Monday. For show topics, suggestions, questions, or comments, please email communications@facet.net. We hope you enjoyed the show.